I used to think emotions were a liability, something to manage, control, push down so I could stay focused or quote unquote be productive. See, growing up, I learned early that being emotional made people uncomfortable, that getting angry made you difficult, that being sad made you weak. So I got good at locking it all down, keeping everything just under the surface while I powered through. But over time, I realized something was off. My motivation started to flatline. My creativity dried up. Even when I looked calm on the outside, I felt absolutely numb inside. And that's when it hit me. Emotions aren't the problem, they're the fuel. That surge of frustration, that's energy. That ache in your chest from sadness, energy. The fire of excitement, the heat of anger, the wave of grief, it's all usable if you learn how to feel it without being ruled by it and redirect it instead of suppressing it. What if the very energy you've been trying to suppress is actually the energy that could drive your next breakthrough? Welcome back to Hard Truths, the podcast where we cut through the noise, challenge the way you think, and talk about the things that are really holding you back. In today's episode, we're flipping the narrative. Your emotions aren't distractions, they're power sources. And when you stop fighting them and start harnessing them, you become unstoppable. Let's start with the core truth. Emotions are not just feelings, they're signals. They're energy in motion. See, every emotion you experience carries a charge. Anger isn't just a bad mood, it's a surge. And excitement isn't just hype, it's fuel. Sadness isn't weakness, it's weight. And when we stop labeling our emotions as good or bad, we begin to see them for what they really are: data and energy. The problem is, most of us were never taught to interpret that energy. We were taught to bottle it up, smile through it, stay rational, be composed. So we learn to suppress rather than harness. But if energy can't be destroyed, only transferred, what happens to all those unprocessed feelings? See, they don't go away. They get stored in your body. They show up as fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, burnout. Not because you're broken, but because your emotional system is backed up. Here's the reframe. Emotions are not obstacles to your productivity or peace. They're raw materials for transformation. If you're willing to learn how to work with them instead of against them. And this isn't just theory. There's science behind this. Studies in somatic psychology show that emotional energy, when felt fully and moved intentionally, can increase focus, drive, and clarity. It activates your nervous system in a way that primes you for action. Think about athletes who channel pre-game nerves, artists who use heartbreak as creative fuel, entrepreneurs who use anger to light a fire under their vision. So different emotions carry different signatures, unique weights, textures, and charges. And the more fluent you become in reading them, the more effectively you can channel them. Think about it. Anger feels hot, fast, explosive. That's forward-moving energy. Grief feels heavy, slow, inward. That's reflective energy. Joy feels expansive, elevated, contagious. That's expressive energy. And fear, it feels tight, jittery, alert. That's protective energy. See, every emotion is trying to get your attention. It's trying to signal something: fear, hurt, excitement, hope. But if you don't slow down long enough to feel it and name it, you'll either shut it down or it'll burst out sideways. That's why awareness isn't optional, it's foundational. But awareness also has to be practiced. You don't just wake up emotionally fluent, you train it. And for me, that training started with learning about two of the very things I still do today. The very first, journaling. Journaling became the first practice that gave structure to that pause. I didn't write pages of insights. Some days, it was just one raw sentence. But what it gave me was space. Space to slow down and ask myself, what am I actually feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? What triggered it? See, that alone helped me stop labeling everything as just stress. But I noticed something else. See, writing helped with naming, but not always feeling. That's when I brought in mindfulness and body awareness. See, somatic mindfulness helped me drop below the surface. I'd sit still, hand on my chest or stomach, and just breathe into the sensation. I stopped trying to label or fix it. I just felt it. That tension in my jaw, that buzz in my stomach, those weren't random. They were clues. My body was trying to talk to me before my brain caught up. Over time, I started seeing patterns, like realizing my anxiety wasn't anxiety. It was fear of disappointing someone, or that my anger was really a mask for hurt. And when you name what's real, you can stop acting out that version that isn't. Once you've identified what you're feeling, the next step is asking, how do I use this? This is where emotional alchemy begins, taking raw, untamed feeling and giving it direction. Let's start with anger. Most people are afraid of their own anger, but when channeled, anger is pure momentum. It's the emotional equivalent of a flame. It burns hot and fast, but it can light the path or burn it down. So ask, what boundaries need to be set? What truth have I been avoiding? Neuroscientists have found that anger activates the amygdala, but when paired with intention, it can lead to assertiveness and clarity instead of destruction. So move your body, write out your truth, channel it with direction, not aggression. How about sadness? Sadness pulls us inward. It's heavy, grounding, but beneath that heaviness is meaning. Sadness tells you what you care about. And according to Dr. Susan David, author of Emotional Agility, sadness can enhance compassion, creativity, and reflection. So journal or paint, just go slow. Let it shape your insight, not bury your momentum. Joy? Joy is one of the most underutilized forms of energy. It feels so good that we forget it's fuel. Research shows that joy increases dopamine and opens the prefrontal cortex, the brain's decision-making hub. That's the time to start the project, share your message, expand into the next thing. Joy isn't just for enjoying, it's for building. And then there's fear, the one most people run from. But fear is directional. It tells you what matters. It activates your sympathetic nervous system. Yes, but it also sharpens your focus. So use fear to highlight what's at stake. Then take a micro action to prove to your body, I can move even when I'm scared. Here's the thing. You're not meant to suppress your emotions. You're meant to listen to them. Then take that information and move with it. Emotional energy isn't something to control. It's something to collaborate with. This is what it means to be emotionally intelligent. Not just feeling your feelings, but using them. So let me walk you through the 4 things I've personally had to learn and practice to stop being run by my emotions and start balancing them like a source of real power. Because for a long time, I just didn't know how to hold emotional intensity. I'd either bottle it up or fake calm, or get overwhelmed and reactive. I thought balance meant being neutral, stoic. But what I've learned is that emotional balance isn't about being flat. It's about being full without spilling. Here's what helped me. First, I want you to name the feeling. I used to say, I'm just off, or I'm overwhelmed. But I wasn't getting specific. Then I learned what Dr. Dan Siegel teaches. Name it to tame it. So now I pause and I ask myself, am I anxious, resentful, grieving, frustrated? Because naming brings the emotion out of the limbic brain into the prefrontal cortex. It gives you distance. It gives you clarity. That one shift helped me stop spiraling and start observing. Second, ground your body. This one changed everything for me. When I'm overwhelmed, I don't argue with myself. I get physical. I've splashed cold water on my face, walked barefoot outside, done 10 deep box breaths. That's how I bring my nervous system back online. It reminds my body, you're safe, you're here. See, emotional regulation doesn't begin in the brain. It begins in the body. Third, build containment rituals. I journal almost every night. Not polished entries, just raw thought dumps. Some nights, I light a candle or put on instrumental music to create a container. These rituals told my nervous system, we're allowed to feel here. This is a safe space. When I didn't have rituals, emotions either leaked out when I didn't want them to, or buried themselves deeper. Now, I give them a safe space to land. And lastly, this one's very important. I want you to talk to yourself like someone you trust. This was the hardest. I used to shame myself for feeling too much. I'd say, Danny, you're being dramatic, or snap out of it. But over time, I replaced that voice. Now I say, this is valid and it will pass. See, I talk to myself like someone I care about. That one phrase has saved me from spirals more times than I can count. These aren't hacks. They're emotional infrastructure. They let me feel everything without being swallowed by it. Because emotional energy without regulation is simply chaos. But when you learn to ride the wave, not drown in it, you become unstoppable. So here's the truth. Your emotions aren't the enemy. They're the raw material, the signal, the spark, the feedback loop between who you are and who you are becoming. If you've been taught that feeling deeply makes you weak, if you've been holding it all in just to keep functioning, if you've been trying to control your emotions instead of learning to work with them, this is your invitation. Start tuning in. Start asking what your emotions are trying to show you. Start moving with them, not against them. This week, I want you to pause when the emotion hits, and instead of shutting down, I want you to ask it a question. What do you want me to do with this? And simply listen. Because your next breakthrough might not come from doing more. It might come from feeling more and using it differently. Tag me at DannyLyvin, DANNYLYVIN, and let me know what emotion you're choosing to harness this week. This is Hard Truths. And today's truth, you don't need less emotion. You need a better way to use it. See you in the next one. Take care.